Hi, I'm Laura with the Irmo Branch of Lexington County Public Library. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a festive fall wreath with a few supplies from your local craft store. I suggest you watch these instructions all the way through and then work at your own pace. First, let's look at what supplies you'll need for this craft. The base of your project is going to be a grapevine wreath. Mine is about 12 inches across, but you can go with whatever size you'd like. If you go a lot bigger, you may need more florals. We're going to design the wreath with 3 different types of florals. The first is your background foliage, like this yellow heather. Then you'll have accent florals, like these distinct red berries. And of course, the star of the show, the blossoms. I've got dark red mums. Notice how all these flowers bring in different shades and textures that go nicely with the grapevine. For assembly, you'll need some jute twine. We'll also be using about a yard of burlap ribbon, though you can use a different kind if you have it. You'll need a pair of scissors. Any old pair will work, but if you have them, wire cutters make it all a little bit easier. The same goes for glue. School glue will work fine, but if you have hot glue or something sturdier, you might prefer to use it. This project only uses a little, so you can use whatever you have on hand. So these are all the supplies. To get started with the project, take a closer look at your wreath. Every grapevine wreath is different. Just like people, it's going to have its own characteristics. Maybe some beautiful spots you want to feature, maybe some that you want to hide with flowers. You'll need to decide which part of the wreath is going to be the top, where you could add a hanger, and where you'll want to put the floral arrangement. I'm going to go with this section on the upper left-hand side. That'll give me plenty of vine to work with while balancing out the asymmetry of my wreath in particular. Next, we're going to prepare the florals by separating the bunches. You'll need scissors or wire cutters. I'm going to show you first how to cut the stems apart using regular scissors. As you can see, these aren't quite sharp enough to go through the wire, but the wire is not very strong. If you bend it in the same spot over and over again, it breaks off pretty easily. There, see? You can bend the wire first, but you'll need scissors to get through the plastic part of the stem. I find it's easier to cut at the joint first, and then work on breaking the wire. It doesn't always go smoothly, so if you do have wire cutters, this part will go faster. So these are the background florals, the heather bush. Next, let's do the mums. Again, you can break the stems with scissors and a little elbow grease, but let's speed things up a little. Last, you may have florals that don't need any cutting. The accent berries here just have a little loop that you can slip right off, and our florals are all set. Now get your wreath and get it oriented however you'd like. This is going to be the top of mine, with the flowers along the side starting at about 8 or 9 o'clock. You can work in whatever order you'd like, but I suggest working with one type of floral at a time so you can spread everything out evenly. I'm going to start with the heather to get a nice base of yellow color. Tuck the stems into the grapevine using the twists and gaps to hold everything in place. You might need to hunt around to find the spots that work well for you. We're not going to glue anything in place until the very end, and only if needed, so you can change it up if you don't like how it's turning out. Don't worry if it looks a little rough at first. We'll trim or hide the stems once all the flowers are in place. Next, I'm going to work with the mums. Notice that you can adjust the placement of the leaves on the stem. With your blossoms, you may also want to bend them out a little so that you see a nice full flower straight on. Work on adjusting the leaves and other florals around your blossoms. The more flowers you get in place, the more difficult it might be to find a spot for them. Keep trying and let the natural traits of the wreath kind of guide how your arrangement is going to turn out. The goal is not perfection, but personality. Since we have so few accent berries, I'm going to make sure to put them in a couple prominent locations. These stems are also a little longer, so I'm going to trim this one down to make it easier to get into place. At this point, I'm also adjusting some of the other florals to make the overall arrangement look better. Once you've got everything situated, you can start manipulating your flowers to sit nicely together. I'm also going to go through and clip any stems at the back that are hanging out. You want to be conservative about trimming since the stems are the anchors for your flowers. And as it happens, I missed one of my mums. That was a mistake, but honestly, it's not a bad idea to keep aside one of your main flowers or accents for a finishing touch. I think my wreath actually needs a little more red at this spot. Now that we have the flowers in place, it's time to add some trimmings. To help hide the stems at the very bottom, we're going to use jute twine to wrap around. There, we have kind of a nice holder for our bouquet. Tie it off at the back with a square knot and trim the extra. You may want to save aside a few inches of twine if you'd like to hang your wreath from a small loop. Another option is to create a loop out of your burlap ribbon, which can make a nice statement if you're going to hang the wreath on a wall or fireplace. I also like how it looks to wrap the wreath in the ribbon, and for this look you'll need to hide the ends and glue them in place. To make a small hanger out of twine, make a slip knot, then tuck it behind the wreath and pull it through the loop of twine like this. Trim if needed, and you've got a loop you can use to hang your wreath from a small hook or nail. I'm actually going to do something different with my burlap ribbon. Instead of wrapping the wreath or using the ribbon as a hanger, I'm going to make a nice bow to attach somewhere. Now, getting a good looking bow out of burlap ribbon is tricky. I wouldn't suggest trying to tie the bow around the wreath itself because it likely won't cooperate. Start by making a half knot in your ribbon. This is like the first step of tying your shoelaces. You'll want to pull it tight, but not too tight, and try to keep your knot roughly centered on the ribbon. Next, make your first loop, or as the little kids say, a bunny ear. Then send the rabbit around the tree and pull the second bunny ear through the hole. That makes the second loop in the bow. At this point, it should still look a little rough, so we're going to straighten it out. Make sure that the tails of the bow are pointing in the same direction and the ribbon of the knot itself is lying straight. Don't pull too tight right away. If you find that you can't get it to look quite right, you may need to try again and send the rabbit around the tree from the other side to get the loops and tails to sit in a classic bow shape. Straighten the tail ribbons and pull the loops into shape, kind of tightening the knot as you work. With a structured fabric like burlap, it may take some fiddling to make it look how you want. As it happens, my bow actually looks a little bit better on the other side, so I'm going to flip it over and keep adjusting. Yeah, definitely better. Once you have your bow shaped, trim the tails so they're about the same length and have a nice neat edge. Now, I could glue the bow really anywhere on the wreath. It might look nice at the top with the hanger, but I'm going to put it at the base of the florals and glue it to the twine. Just a few more touch-ups and the wreath is all done. And here's the finished product. With silk florals, this wreath can be used for either indoor or outdoor decorating. If you're interested in learning more about how to create seasonal decorations, check out the online resources at lexcolibrary.com. Look for the Hobbies and Crafts Reference Center for tons of information on crafting and DIY projects at multiple skill levels. Thanks so much for joining me today for this fall wreath tutorial. I'm Laura with Irmo Branch Library. Check out more video programs on Lexington County Public Library's YouTube channel. And if you made a wreath with us today, we'd love to see it. I'll post how to share. Thanks again.